The woods behind the Harper family's new home were a tangle of secrets, a dense sprawl of oak and pine that seemed to whisper as the wind moved through it. The Harpers, Clara, David, and their 14-year-old daughter Sophie, had moved to the small town of Eldergrove 3 months ago, seeking a fresh start after a year of grief. Clara's sister, Lily, had died in a car accident, leaving a void that clung to them like damp air. The house, a weathered Victorian at the edge of the forest, was meant to be their sanctuary, but the woods had other plans. It was Sophie who found the camera. She'd taken to exploring the forest, her sketchbook tucked under her arm, chasing the quiet that helped her escape the weight of her mother's sadness and her father's forced optimism. On a crisp September afternoon, with the leaves just starting to turn, she wandered deeper than usual, following a narrow path that seemed to appear out of nowhere. The air was sharp with the scent of moss and earth, and the light filtered through the canopy in thin golden shafts. She was sketching a gnarled tree, its roots twisting like veins when she spotted it. Sophie knelt, her fingers brushing the cold metal. It was old, a Polaroid SX70, the kind her Aunt Lily had once shown her in a dusty photo album. The camera was scratched, its lens clouded, but it felt heavy with purpose, as if it had been waiting for her. She glanced around, half expecting someone to claim it, but the woods were silent, save for the faint rustle of leaves. She tucked the camera into her backpack, her heart quickening with a mix of excitement and unease. Back at the house, Sophie set the camera on the kitchen table, where Clara was chopping vegetables for dinner. David was in the living room, grading papers from his new teaching job at Eldergrove High. "Mom, look at this," Sophie said, her voice bright but edged with something Clara couldn't place. "I found it in the woods." Clara wiped her hands on a towel, her brow furrowing as she examined the camera. "It's ancient," she said, turning it over. The initials A were carved into the bottom, faint but deliberate. "Probably someone's junk. Did you see anything else out there?" Sophie shook her head. "Just leaves and trees. But it feels weird, doesn't it? Like it's important." Clara's smile was tight. She didn't like the woods, hadn't since they'd moved in. They reminded her of Lily, who'd loved hiking, always dragging Clara along on trails that felt too wild, too alive. "It's just a camera, Soph. Maybe we can get it working." David joined them, his glass-ups perched on his nose. "A Polaroid? Haven't seen one of those in years." He picked it up, popping open the film compartment. A single cartridge remained, with one photo left. "Might still have some juice. Want to try it?" Sophie's eyes lit up. "Let's take a picture." Clara hesitated, a chill running through her. "Maybe we should leave it alone. We don't know where it's been." But Sophie was already loading the cartridge, her fingers deft despite the camera's age. "Come on, Mom. It's just a photo." She aimed the camera at Clara and David, who stood awkwardly by the sink. The flash was blinding. The shutters clicked loud in the quiet kitchen. The camera whirred, spitting out a blank square that slowly began to develop. They watched, huddled around the table, as the image emerged. It was them, Clara, David, Sophie in the foreground, her finger half covering the lens. But the background was wrong. The kitchen window behind them didn't show the backyard. It showed the forest, dark and dense, with a faint glowing figure standing among the trees. The figure was blurry, humanoid, its face obscured but its presence unmistakable. Clara's breath caught. "What the hell is that?" David squinted, his face paling. "It's a glitch, maybe. Old film does weird things." Sophie's voice was small. "That's not a glitch. That's the woods." They stared at the photo, the air in the kitchen growing heavy. Clara's hands trembled as she reached for it, her fingers stopping short. The figure seemed to shift as she looked, its edges sharpening, as if it were trying to step out of the frame. She thought of Lily, of her sister's laughter echoing through the woods, and her stomach twisted. "We need to get rid of this," she said, but her voice lacked conviction. Sophie clutched the camera protectively. "No way. This is a clue, Mom. Someone left it there for a reason." David put a hand on Clara's shoulder, his voice steady but strained. "Let's not jump to conclusions. We'll take it to the sheriff tomorrow, see if anyone reported it missing. But Clara couldn't shake the feeling that the camera wasn't lost. It was found, deliberately by them. That night, she lay awake, the photo on the nightstand, its image burned into her mind. She heard whispers, faint and fleeting, like leaves rustling outside the window. "Look closer," they seemed to say, and her skin prickled with the certainty that the forest was watching. The next morning, Sophie was up before dawn, a camera in her hands. She'd found a notebook in her room, one of Lily's old ones, tucked under her bed as if placed there. Its pages were filled with sketches of the woods, of a clearing with a stone at its center, and cryptic notes. "The lens sees what we can't. The forest keeps it." Sophie didn't show her parents, not yet. She felt the camera's weight, its pull, urging her back to the woods. Clara noticed Sophie's distraction, the way her daughter's eyes kept drifting to the forest beyond the window. She wanted to lock the camera away, to burn the photo, but something stopped her. A flicker of Lily's voice in her mind, telling her to trust. David, ever practical, called the sheriff, who dismissed the camera as abandoned junk but agreed to check for missing persons reports linked to the initials. As the day wore on, the photo seemed to change. The figure in the forest grew clearer, its face still hidden, but its form more distinct, a woman perhaps in a long coat, her hands outstretched. Clara felt a chill that wasn't just fear. It was recognition, though she couldn't say why. The forest was calling, and the camera was its voice. Sophie slipped out at dusk, the camera slung around her neck. She didn't tell her parents. She couldn't. The path to the clearing was there again, waiting, and she knew the forest wanted her to see something. As she stepped into the woods, the air grew heavy, and the camera felt warm against her chest as if alive. Sophie's boots crunched on the forest path, the Polaroid camera bouncing against her chest as she moved deeper into the woods. The air was thick, the scent of moss and pine mingling with something sharper, like the tang of metal after rain. The path to the clearing felt alive, its twists and turns guiding her as if the forest itself were leading the way. She clutched Lily's notebook, its pages heavy with sketches and cryptic notes, the word lens circling in her mind. The camera was warm, almost pulsing, and Sophie felt a pull she couldn't explain, like a thread tugging at her heart. Back at the house, Clara paced the kitchen, her eyes flicking to the photo on the table. The figure in the forest background was clearer now, its long coat and outstretched hands unmistakable. She'd sworn it was blurrier yesterday, but the image seemed to shift each time she looked, as if it were developing in real time. David was at the sheriff's office, dropping off the camera's details. But Clara knew he wouldn't find answers there. The initials, E.M, on the camera's base haunted her, stirring a memory she couldn't place. Was it Lily's handwriting, those sharp, deliberate strokes? No, that was impossible. Lily had never owned a Polaroid like this. Clara's thoughts were interrupted by a creak from upstairs. She froze, her heart pounding. "Sophie?" she called, but the house was silent. She climbed the stairs, her steps quickening as she reached Sophie's room. The door was open, the bed unmade, and Lily's notebook was gone. Panic clawed at her chest. She ran to the window, peering into the backyard where the forest loomed like a dark sea. Sophie was out there, with the camera drawn to the woods just as Lily had been. In the forest, Sophie reached the clearing she'd seen in Lily's sketches. It was smaller than she'd imagined, a perfect circle ringed by towering pines, their trunks etched with faint, spiraling symbols that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. At the center stood a flat stone, smooth and gray, like the one in the notebook. It felt wrong, too still, as if the air around it were holding its breath. Sophie knelt, her fingers brushing the stone's surface. It was warm, unnaturally so, and the camera grew heavier, its warmth spreading through her chest. She opened Lily's notebook, finding the sketch of the clearing, the stone rendered in sharp detail. Beneath it, Lily had written, "The lens sees the truth. Don't look away." Sophie's breath hitched. She raised the camera, her hands trembling, and aimed it at the stone. The shutter clicked, but no photo emerged. The cartridge was empty now, the last one used in the kitchen. Yet, the camera whirred, its lens glinting as if it had captured something anyway. A rustle broke the silence, and Sophie spun, her heart racing. A figure stood at the edge of the clearing. A woman, her long coat blending with the shadows, her face obscured by a tangle of white hair. "You shouldn't be here," the woman said, her voice low and rough, like leaves scraping stone. "That camera doesn't belong to you." Sophie clutched the camera tighter. "Who are you? Did you leave it here?" The woman stepped closer, her eyes sharp and ancient. "I'm Esther, and that camera, it sees what the forest hides. You've already looked, haven't you?" Sophie's mind flashed to the photo, the glowing figure in the woods. What was that thing in the picture? Was it my aunt? Esther's lips curved, not quite a smile. "The forest keeps what it takes. Your aunt knew that. She looked through the lens, too." Before Sophie could ask more, Clara's voice echoed through the trees. "Sophie!" Her mother burst into the clearing, her face pale with fear. "What are you doing? I told you to stay away from here." Sophie stood, the camera still in her hands. "Mom, this is Esther. She knows about the camera, about Lily." Clara's eyes narrowed as she took in the old woman. "Who are you? What do you know about my sister?" Esther's gaze was unyielding. "Lily came to me years ago, asked about the forest, about the things it shows. She found the camera, just like your girl did, and she paid the price." Clara's throat tightened. "What price? What happened to her?" Esther gestured to the stone. "The forest is a mirror. It shows you what you seek, but it takes something in return. Lily wanted truth. What do you want?" Clara grabbed Sophie's arm, pulling her back. "We're leaving, now." But Sophie resisted, her eyes on the stone. "Mom, it's connected. The camera, the photo, Lily's notebook. We need to know." Clara's voice cracked. "I won't lose you too." Esther's voice cut through the tension. "You won't lose her if you listen. The camera's not done with you. Look again when you're ready. But be careful what you ask to see." As they left the clearing, the forest seemed to close around them, its shadows deeper, its air colder. Clara held Sophie's hand tightly, but the camera felt like a third presence, its weight pulling them back. At home, Clara locked the camera in a drawer, but the photo on the table was sharper now. The figure's face almost clear, a woman, her eyes wide, her mouth open in a silent scream. Clara's heart stopped. It wasn't Lily, but it was someone she knew. Clara couldn't sleep. The photo lay on the kitchen table, its edges curling as if trying to escape. The figure in the forest background was unmistakable now. Ellen Marsh, a friend from Clara's childhood who'd vanished in Eldergrove 20 years ago. Ellen's face, frozen in that silent scream, stared out from the Polaroid, her eyes wide with terror or wonder. Clara's hands shook as she traced the initials A.M. on the camera, now locked in the drawer. Ellen Marsh. Not a coincidence. The forest had brought her back, just as it had brought the camera to Sophie. David returned from the sheriff's office, his face drawn. "They found nothing," he said, tossing his keys on the counter. "No record of a camera, no missing persons tied to E.M. recently. Just an old case from the 90s. Ellen Marsh disappeared at 17. They assumed she ran away." Clara's voice was barely a whisper. "It's her, David. In the photo, it's Ellen." David frowned, picking up the Polaroid. His eyes widened as he studied the figure, the forest behind her dark and alive. "That's impossible. This was taken yesterday." Sophie, sitting at the table with Lily's notebook, looked up. "It's not impossible. Esther said the camera sees what the forest hides. Maybe it's showing us Ellen because she's still out there." Clara's heart pounded. "No, we're not doing this. That camera stays locked away, and you're not going back to those woods." But Sophie's eyes were bright with defiance, so like Lily's. "You can't ignore it, Mom. Lily knew something. Her notebook, it's all about the forest, the stone, the camera. She was looking for something just like Ellen." David put a hand on Clara's shoulder, his voice calm but strained. Let's at least look at the notebook. Maybe there's something we missed. Clara relented, her fear warring with her need for answers. They spread Lily's notebook across the table, its pages filled with sketches of the clearing, the stone, and symbols that matched those Sophie had seen in the forest. One page stood out, a drawing of the camera, its lens glowing faintly, with the words, "The lens is the key." It sees the in-between. Beside it, Lily had written a name, Esther. She knew her, Sophie said, her voice trembling with excitement. Lily was working with Esther. That's why the camera was in the woods. It's connected to her, to Ellen, to everything. Clara's mind reeled. Lily had never mentioned Esther, never spoken of the forest beyond her love for hiking. But the notebook told a different story, a story of obsession, of a search for something beyond the ordinary. Clara thought of Ellen, her friend who'd loved ghost stories, who dared Clara to sneak into the woods at night. Ellen had vanished during one of those dares, leaving Clara with a guilt she'd buried for years. "We need to talk to Esther," Sophie said. "She knows what the camera does." Clara shook her head. "She's dangerous. She knows too much, and she's not telling us everything." David's voice was steady. "Then we go together. We ask her what she knows about Ellen, about Lily, but we don't take the camera." Sophie's jaw tightened, but she nodded. Clara felt a flicker of relief, though the photo's image burned in her mind. Ellen's face, so clear now, was a warning, or a plea. They drove to Esther's cabin at the forest's edge, its walls sagging under vines, its windows glowing with that same amber light Sophie had seen. Esther was waiting, her white hair loose, her eyes sharp as she gestured them inside. The cabin smelled of herbs and smoke, its shelves lined with jars and stones etched with symbols. "You saw her," Esther said, her gaze on Clara. "In the photo, Ellen." Clara's throat tightened. "How do you know?" Esther's lips curved. "The camera doesn't lie. It shows what the forest holds. Ellen looked through it, just like Lily. They both wanted answers." "What answers?" David asked, his voice sharp. "What's in the woods?" Esther's eyes darkened. "The in-between. A place where the world thins, where the lost linger. The camera sees it, captures it, but it always takes something back." Sophie stepped forward, clutching the notebook. "What did it take from Lily?" Esther's gaze softened. "Her light, her curiosity. She wanted to know what Ellen found, and she paid the price." Clara's voice broke. "Is she still out there, like Ellen?" Esther didn't answer, but her silence was answer enough. She handed Clara a small stone, etched with a spiral. "Go to the clearing," she said. "Look through the lens again, but be ready for what you see." Clara took the stone, its warmth seeping into her palm. She didn't trust Esther, but the pull of the forest was stronger now, a call she couldn't ignore. The camera, the photo, Lily's notebook, they were pieces of a puzzle, and the clearing was its heart. The forest was a living thing, its presence pressing against Clara as she led David and Sophie down the path to the clearing. The Polaroid camera was back in Sophie's hands. Clara had relented, unable to deny its pull. The stone Esther had given her was heavy in her pocket, its spiral symbol warm against her fingers. The air was thick with the scent of pine and something sour like decay, and the trees seemed to lean closer, their branches whispering secrets Clara wasn't sure she wanted to hear. Sophie clutched Lily's notebook, her eyes scanning the pages for clues. "It says here the lens is a key," she said, her voice low. Lily thought it could open something, show her what Ellen saw. David's face was grim, his flashlight beam cutting through the dusk. "This is insane. We're chasing ghosts because of an old camera and some sketches." Clara's voice was sharp. "It's not just sketches, David. That was Ellen in the photo. And Lily knew something. We can't ignore this." They reached the clearing, the stone at its center glowing faintly under the moonlight. The symbols on the surrounding trees pulsed, their light a sickly green that made Clara's skin crawl. Sophie raised the camera, her hands steady despite the fear in her eyes. Esther said to look again, she said. But there's no film left. Clara's heart pounded. Try it anyway. Sophie aimed the camera at the stone, the shutter clicking uselessly. But the air shimmered, and a sound, like a bell ringing underwater, filled the clearing. Clara gasped as the stone's surface rippled, reflecting not the trees but a dark, endless expanse, like a window to another world. In it, she saw Ellen, her face no longer screaming but calm, her eyes glowing with that same unnatural light from the photo. "Ellen," Clara whispered, stepping closer. The image shifted, and now it was Lily, her sister's face soft and sad, her hands pressed against the stone as if trapped behind glass. Sophie's voice trembled. "And Lily?" David grabbed the camera, his hands shaking. "What the hell is this?" Before anyone could answer, Esther appeared at the clearing's edge, her coat blending with the shadows. "You looked," she said, her voice heavy. "The lens shows the in-between, where the forest keeps its lost." Clara's voice cracked. "Are they alive? Can we get them back?" Esther's eyes were sad but unyielding. "They're caught, not gone. The forest is a mirror. It shows you what you seek, but it demands payment. The camera took their light, their essence. To bring them back, you must offer something equal." Sophie's eyes widened. "Like what?" Esther gestured to the stone. "Something that defines you. Your love, your fear, your truth. The forest will choose." Clara's hand tightened around the stone in her pocket. "And if we don't?" Esther's voice was cold. "Then they stay, and the forest keeps calling." David's face was pale. "This is madness. We're not playing its game." But Sophie stepped forward, her voice fierce. "We have to? For Aunt Lily? For Ellen?" Clara felt the forest's pull, its hum vibrating in her chest. She thought of Lily, of the guilt she'd carried since Ellen's disappearance, of the years she'd spent trying to outrun her grief. The camera was a key, but it was also a trap, and she wasn't sure she could trust Esther or the forest. "Show us how," Clara said finally, her voice steady despite the fear coiling inside her. Esther nodded, kneeling by the stone. "Place something of yours on it, something that holds your heart. Then look through the lens." Sophie hesitated, then set Lily's notebook on the stone. Clara added the spiral-etched stone from her pocket. David, reluctant, placed his wedding ring beside them, his jaw tight. The air thickened, the symbols on the trees flaring brighter. Sophie raised the camera, her breath hitching as she pressed the shutter. The clearing shuddered, and the stone's surface rippled again, showing Lily and Ellen, their faces clearer now, their voices faint but audible. "Clara," Lily whispered, "don't let it take you." The vision faded, and the offerings were gone, swallowed by the stone. Esther's voice was soft. "You've opened the way, but the forest isn't done." The clearing was a void, its silence louder than any sound. Clara stood frozen, her eyes locked on the stone where their offerings had vanished. Lily's notebook, the spiral-etched stone, David's ring. The camera hung heavy around Sophie's neck, its lens dark but alive, as if it had absorbed the light of the clearing. Esther's words echoed in Clara's mind. "The forest isn't done." Lily's voice, faint and desperate, lingered too. "Don't let it take you." Clara's heart pounded, torn between hope and dread. Sophie's voice broke the silence, small but fierce. There, Mom. Aunt Lily, Ellen, they're not gone. We can get them back." David's face was ashen, his hands clenched. "This is crazy, Sophie. That camera, this place, it's not right. We need to leave now." But Clara couldn't move. The forest's hum was back, a low thrum that vibrated through the earth, sensing with her pulse. She felt it pulling her, not just to the stone, but to something deeper, something that knew her grief, her guilt. She looked at Esther, whose eyes were fixed on the trees, as if seeing something beyond the clearing. "What does it want?" Clara asked, her voice raw. "You set a price. What's the price?" Esther's gaze met hers, heavy with knowledge. "The forest takes what you hold closest. For Lily, It was her curiosity. For Ellen, her courage. You've given it things, but it wants more. It wants you. Sophie's eyes widened. Us, like our lives. Esther shook her head. Not your lives. Your essence. The thing that makes you who you are. For you, Clara, it's your guilt. For you, David, it's your control. For you, Sophie, it's your hope. Clara's stomach twisted. Her guilt was a shadow born of Ellen's disappearance, of failing to save Lily, of not seeing Sophie's pain. To give it up was to lose the weight that defined her, but also the tether to her sister, her friend. David's control, his need to fix things, to keep them safe, was his anchor. And Sophie's hope, bright and fierce, was what kept her chasing the forest's secrets. I can't, David said, his voice breaking. I won't let it take that. Sophie stepped forward, her voice steady. We have to, Dad. If we don't, we'll never know. Clara's eyes stung with tears. She thought of Lily, trapped in that in-between place, her voice pleading. She thought of Ellen, her childhood friend, lost to the same forest that now held her sister. Show us, she said to Esther. Show us how to do it. Esther knelt by the stone, her fingers tracing its symbols. Speak to the forest, she said. Offer your essence willingly. Look through the lens and it will show you the way. Clara took the camera from Sophie, its weight grounding her. She raised it, her hands trembling, and aimed at the stone. I give you my guilt, she said, her voice cracking. For Ellen, for Lily, for all the ways I failed them. David hesitated, then spoke, his voice low. I give you my control, my need to keep everything safe. Sophie's voice was a whisper. I give you my hope, the belief that we can fix this. The stone flared, its light blinding, and the clearing shook, the trees bending inward as if drawn to the offering. The camera whirred, its lens glowing, and Clara saw them, Lily and Ellen, standing in the in-between, their forms clear but flickering. Lily's eyes were soft, filled with love. Clara, she said, you don't have to do this. Ellen's voice followed, faint but urgent. The forest keeps what it takes. Don't let it have you. The vision faded, and Clara stumbled back, the camera slipping from her hands. Sophie caught it, her face pale. They're warning us, she said. But we're so close. Esther's voice was grim. You've offered, but the forest hasn't accepted. It wants more, a final piece. Clara's heart sank. What more can we give? Esther's eyes darkened. You will know when it asks. The walk back to the house was silent, the forest's hum fading, but never gone. Clara felt hollow, her guilt still there, a wound that hadn't closed. David's shoulders were slumped, his control fraying. Sophie clutched the camera, her hope dimmed but not extinguished. The photo waited on the kitchen table, Ellen's face now joined by Lily's, their eyes locked on Clara, pleading. The Harper house was a cage of silence, the photo on the kitchen table, a constant reminder of the forest's hold. Clara stared at it, Lily and Ellen's faces now sharp, their expressions a mix of sorrow and warning. The camera sat beside it, unlocked from the drawer by Sophie's quiet insistence. Its lens seemed to watch them, reflecting the dim light of the kitchen like an unblinking eye. David paced, his usual calm replaced by a restless energy, while Sophie flipped through Lily's notebook, her fingers tracing the symbols that matched those in the clearing. We can't go back, David said, his voice tight. That place, that camera, it's dangerous. We're playing with something we don't understand. Clara's voice was low, almost a growl. We understand enough. Lily's there, Ellen's there. They're not gone, David. They're trapped. Sophie looked up, her eyes fierce. Esther said the forest wants a final piece. We need to know what it is. Clara's mind churned, replaying Esther's words. The forest takes what you hold closest. She'd offered her guilt, David his control, Sophie her hope, but it wasn't enough. The forest was greedy, its hunger a living thing that pulsed in the air. She thought of Lily's notebook, the phrase "the lens is the key" scrawled in desperate ink. The camera was more than a tool, it was a bridge a way to see the in-between. But what did it want in return? The phone rang, shattering the silence. It was the sheriff. His voice clipped. Found something about Ellen Marsh. Her family kept a box of her things. Letters, photos, a journal. There's mention of a woman named Esther, and a camera. Thought you'd want to know. Clara's heart raced. Can we see it? Drop by tomorrow, the sheriff said. But, Clara, be careful. That forest has a history. After the call, Clara told David and Sophie, her voice steady despite the fear coiling inside her. Ellen was connected to Esther just like Lily. We need to see that journal. David shook his head. This is a mistake. We're digging into something that's already taken too much. Sophie's voice was sharp. We're not giving up, Dad. And Lily deserves better. Clara nodded, her resolve hardening. We go to the sheriff, then back to Esther. She knows more than she's saying. The next morning, they drove to the sheriff's office, where a dusty box waited. Inside were Ellen's things, a locket, faded photos, and a journal filled with hurried writing. Clara opened it, her hands trembling. Ellen had written about the forest, about a clearing where the world feels thin, about a camera that showed her things she couldn't unsee. One entry stood out. Esther says the lens is a mirror. It shows you the truth, but it takes your reflection. I saw her, my mom, gone 10 years. She's still there, in the in-between. Clara's breath caught. Ellen's mother had died when they were kids, a hiking accident in the same forest. Was that what Ellen had been chasing? She flipped to the last page where Ellen had written, I'm going back. The camera will show me how to reach her. If I don't come back, don't follow. Sophie's voice was small. She knew, just like Aunt Lily. David's face was pale. This is too much. We're not doing this. But Clara was already standing, the journal in her hands. We're going to Esther, now. They found her at the cabin, her eyes sharp as she took in the journal. You're getting closer, she said. The forest is watching. It knows you're ready. Ready for what? Clara demanded. You keep talking about a price. What does it want? Esther's voice was low. Your reflection, the part of you that sees yourself. For Ellen, it was her courage. For Lily, her curiosity. For you, it's your family. Clara's heart stopped. My family, Esther nodded. The forest wants what binds you. Your love, your unity. Offer it, and you might reach them. Sophie's eyes widened. You mean we have to give up each other? Esther's gaze was steady. Or risk being taken yourselves. Clara felt the weight of the camera, still in Sophie's hands. It was a choice, her family or Lily and Ellen. She looked at David, his face torn, and Sophie, her hope flickering but strong. The forest was waiting, and the lens was ready to show them the truth. The forest path to the clearing was a tunnel of shadows, the trees closing in as Clara, David, and Sophie walked in silence. The Polaroid camera hung around Sophie's neck, its lens catching the moonlight like a dark star. Clara clutched Ellen's journal, its pages a map of warnings and truths, while David carried Lily's notebook, his knuckles white. The stone Esther had given them was gone, but its warmth lingered in Clara's memory, a reminder of the forest's hunger. The air was heavy, the hum of the woods a low pulse that seemed to know their names. Sophie broke the silence, her voice trembling but resolute. We can't let it take us apart. Aunt Lily wouldn't want that. Neither would Ellen. Clara's throat tightened. But if it's the only way to reach them? David's voice was sharp. No, we're not sacrificing our family for this. There has to be another way. But Clara wasn't sure there was. Esther's words, the forest wants what binds you, had rooted themselves in her mind. The camera, the clearing, the stone. They were all part of a bargain she didn't fully understand. She thought of Lily, her laughter, her reckless curiosity, and Ellen, her fearless friend who'd vanished chasing ghosts. The forest had taken them, and now it was offering a chance to bring them back, at a cost. They reached the clearing, the stone at its center gleaming faintly, the symbols on the trees pulsing with that sickly green light. Esther was there, waiting, her coat blending with the shadows. "You've brought the camera," she said, her eyes on Sophie. "And your hearts. That's good." Clara's voice was steady, though fear coiled inside her. "Tell us what to do. How do we get them back without losing each other?" Esther knelt by the stone, her fingers tracing its symbols. "The forest is a mirror. It reflects what you offer. You've given things, notebooks, stones, rings, but it wants more. It wants the bond that holds you together. Speak it, through the lens, and it may answer." Sophie raised the camera, her hands shaking. "What do we say?" Esther's gaze was heavy. "The truth of your love. What you'd give for each other, and for them." Clara took a deep breath, her eyes on the stone. "I offer our love," she said, her voice breaking. "The love that kept us going after Lily died. The love that holds us together, even when we're breaking." David's voice followed, reluctant but firm. "I offer our unity, the strength we find in each other, even when I'm afraid." Sophie's voice was a whisper, fierce and bright. "I offer our family, the hope that we'll always be together, no matter what." The stone flared, its light blinding, and the clearing trembled, the trees bending inward as if bowing to the offering. The camera whirred, its lens glowing, and Clara saw them. Lily and Ellen, standing in the in-between, their forms solid but fragile, like glass about to shatter. Lily's eyes were soft, filled with love, while Ellen's were fierce, a warning. "Clara," Lily said, her voice clear now, like a bell in the silence. "You can't give this. It's too much." Ellen's voice was sharp. "The forest will take everything. Don't let it." Clara reached out, her hand passing through the air where they stood. "I have to. I can't leave you here." The stone pulsed, and the air grew heavy, the hum becoming a roar. Clara felt something tear inside her, not pain but loss, as if the love she'd offered was being pulled away. David gasped, his hand clutching hers, and Sophie stumbled, the camera slipping to the ground. The vision faded and the clearing was silent again, the stone dull, the symbols dark. Esther's voice was soft. "You offered, but the forest hasn't accepted. It's testing you." Clara's knees buckled, her hands digging into the earth. "What more does it want?" Esther's eyes were sad. "It wants you to choose, your family, or them." Sophie's voice was a sob. "We can't choose that." David pulled her close, his face grim. "We're done here. We're leaving." But Clara couldn't move. The forest was still calling, its hum faint but insistent, and Lily's voice echoed in her mind. "You can't give this." She knew the choice was coming, and she wasn't sure she could make it. The Harper house was a tomb, its silence broken only by the creak of the floorboards as Clara paced. The photo on the kitchen table was a haunting relic, Lily and Ellen's faces now vivid, their eyes pleading, their mouths frozen in silent warnings. The camera sat beside it, its lens dark but watchful, as if waiting for the family to make their final move. David sat at the table, his head in his hands, while Sophie clutched Ellen's journal, her eyes red from crying. The forest's hum lingered in their minds, a reminder of the choice Esther had laid before them, their family or the lost. Clara's voice was hoarse. "We can't do this. We can't choose between us and them." David looked up, his face haggard. "We're not choosing. We're walking away. That forest, that camera, it's tearing us apart." Sophie's voice was fierce despite her tears. "We can't walk away. Aunt Lily and Ellen are still out there. We saw them. They're not gone." Clara's heart ached, torn between her daughter's hope and her own fear. She thought of Lily, her sister's laughter, her reckless spirit, and Ellen, her friend who'd dared too much. The forest had taken them, and now it was offering a chance to bring them back, but at the cost of the family she had left. She looked at David, his eyes filled with a desperation to protect them, and Sophie, her hope a fragile light in the darkness. "We need to talk to Esther again," Clara said finally. "She knows how this ends." They drove to the cabin, the forest looming around them, its shadows deeper in the moonlight. Esther was waiting, her eyes sharp but tired, as if the forest's weight pressed on her too. "You felt it," she said, her voice low. "The choice. The forest always demands one." Clara's voice trembled. "How do we choose? How do we give up our family for them?" Esther's gaze softened. "You don't give up your family. You offer the bond that holds you, the love that defines you. But it's not just yours to give. It's theirs too." Sophie's eyes widened. "You mean Lily and Ellen have to agree?" Esther nodded. "The in-between is a mirror. They see you just as you see them. They must also choose to return or to stay." David's voice was sharp. "And if they don't?" Esther's eyes darkened. "Then the forest keeps you all." Clara felt a chill, the weight of the camera in Sophie's hands a reminder of its power. "What do we do?" she asked. Esther handed her a small vial of dark liquid, its scent sharp and bitter. "Go to the clearing. Drink this, all of you. It will open the lens fully, let you speak to them. But you must all agree, here and in the in-between." Back at the clearing, the stone glowed faintly, the symbols on the trees pulsing once more. Clara held the vial, her hands trembling. "We do this together," she said, looking at David and Sophie. "No matter what happens." They drank, the liquid burning their throats, and the clearing shimmered, the stone's surface rippling like water. Lillian and Ellen appeared, their forms solid now, their voices clear. "Clara," Lily said, her eyes filled with love. "You can't give up your family for me." Ellen's voice was fierce. "The forest took us because we chose it. Don't make the same mistake." Sophie stepped forward, tears streaming down her face. "But we love you. We want you back." Lily's smile was sad. "We love you too. That's why we're staying, to keep you safe." Clara's heart broke, her hand reaching for the stone. "No, I won't lose you again." The stone flared, and the clearing roared, the hum becoming a deafening pulse. Clara felt the forest pulling, not just at her but at David and Sophie, their bond fraying under its hunger. Lily and Ellen's forms flickered, their voices fading. "Choose us," Lily whispered. "But choose yourselves first." The vision collapsed, and Clara fell to her knees, the vial empty in her hand. Esther's voice was soft. "They made their choice. Now you must make yours." The clearing was silent, the stone cold under Clara's hands as she knelt, her breath ragged. The forest's hum was gone, replaced by a stillness that felt like the end of something. David and Sophie stood beside her, their faces pale, their hands linked as if to anchor themselves against the choice they'd been forced to make. Lily and Ellen's voices echoed in Clara's mind. "Choose yourselves first," a plea that tore at her heart. The camera lay in the dirt, its lens dark, its power spent. Esther stood at the clearing's edge, her eyes heavy with knowledge, but she offered no words, only silence. Clara's voice was a whisper. "They're gone. We saw them, and now they're gone." Sophie's tears fell, but her voice was steady. "They're not gone, Mom. They chose to stay to protect us. We felt them." David's hand tightened around Clara's. "We can't keep doing this. The forest, it's taken enough." Clara nodded, but the weight of Lily and Ellen's sacrifice was a new kind of guilt, one she couldn't shake. She thought of the photo, now blank on the kitchen table, its image faded as if the forest had reclaimed it. The camera had shown them the in-between, a place where the lost lingered, but it had also shown them the truth. Love was a bond that transcended even the forest's hunger. Esther stepped forward, her voice soft. "The forest gave you what it could. They're free, in their way, because you loved them enough to let them go." Clara's eyes stung. "But we didn't bring back." Esther's gaze was kind but firm. "You brought them closer. You saw them, spoke to them. That's more than the forest usually gives." Sophie picked up the camera, its weight lighter now as if its purpose was fulfilled. "What do we do with this?" she asked. Esther's lips curved. "Bury it here by the stone. Let the forest keep it." They dug a small hole, the earth soft and yielding, and placed the camera inside, covering it with dirt. The stone seemed to pulse once, a final acknowledgement, And then it was still. The symbols on the trees were dark, their light extinguished. Clara felt a shift, a lightness in her chest as if the forest had released its hold. Back at the house, they sat together, the photo blank but their memories vivid. Clara thought of Lily's laughter, Ellen's courage, and the love that had bound them all. The forest was silent now, its secrets buried, but Clara knew it was still there, watching, waiting for others who might look too closely. Sophie opened Lily's notebook, its pages now empty, as if the forest had taken its words too. But she smiled, a small, hopeful smile. "They're okay," she said. "I know they are." David pulled her close, his voice soft. "We're okay too." Clara nodded, her hand resting on the blank photo. The forest had taken so much, but it had given them something too. A moment of connection, a glimpse of the light beyond. She didn't know if it was real, if the in-between was a place or a dream. She knew Lily and Ellen were there, together, and that was enough.